there, I'm Diane Callahan, developmental editor and YouTuber quotidian writer. I'm here again with authors Hero Bowen and Jordan Riley Swan, and their most recent release is Limelight Larceny, the Crew Building Con, a comedy crime novel about a community theater troupe trying desperately to save their theater by planning an elaborate con. And since the theater, the stage, is such a big part of this book, I really wanted to dive into that inspiration, especially because you're both theater nerds. And I feel that there's a lot of writers and readers out there who are also theater nerds and who will appreciate all the references in this book. And I certainly did, because I do love stage plays and musicals. I can't act to save my life, but I do want to know what your backgrounds in theater are, because I know that you are both actors to some degree. So George says no.
Yeah. So I've done it since I was a kid. You know, like little drama groups on a weekend. It was always something that I wanted to do. At university, I was part of a drama group, and then from there, when I finished university, I got an agent, and I've been working in theatre and film and acting ever since.
Are there particular roles that you like to do, or is it mostly stage plays? Is it mostly like short films or movies? Or
it used to be mostly theatre, but it's been a bit more short films, film, that kind of thing in recent years. But I prefer the stage. Stage is, that's where it's at. It's like, you know, you go on stage when the curtain comes up, and you know, you're entirely invested in the role until the show ends. Whereas when it's film or short film or screen, you know, it's cut, start again, regroup, regather, you know, get back into character. Different disciplines, but stage is just will always be my first love.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's sweet. First loves. I discovered it in college. I was it was long out of high school, and one of the reasons I kind of freaked out when you said acting is because that wasn't what interested me. The experience of going to the theater was much more in line with my love of the theater. And then I was at community college, and I needed an art class of some kind, and the introduction to theater fell into that thing. And when I went to it, it was like a DVD behind the scenes commentary, but for the actual theater. And I loved it so much, I ended up signing up for the next class and the next class and the next class, and was going to end up making it my minor before I eventually had to drop out for unrelated reasons. But I did get a love of not only the theater itself now, but of the processes behind the scenes. So the only acting I ever did was I was an extra in a movie called Wedding Bell Blues, but it's 3 seconds, 1 hour and 3 minutes in, not that I looked, of me standing in a wedding chapel in Las Vegas. And that was 20 plus years ago. So that's my brush with superstardom.
do you have an IMDb page though?
I will now. So.
Gotta go add it in. Love that. But so for both of you, what's one of the most memorable moments that happened for you on stage or in one of your theater classes?
Wow, so many. One of my favorites was I was playing Medea in Medea. And there's a bit at the end when Medea has wreaked havoc upon the ex, Jason. If you don't know Medea, the children die. Very bloody, very grim. But my director came behind the stage, and every night we'd been putting like a bit of blood on my dress to sort of, you know, finish it off as like, everybody's dead. Ha 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 ha. You shouldn't have messed with me. But he just dumped this entire like 2-liter bottle of fake blood on me. It was the last night. Just dumped it on me and then was like, go. And so for the last scene, I was just like, it was like Carrie, like on the, it literally I just stood there, and then for some reason like the lighting had changed and it just was facing upwards, and there was just this massive shadow cast like on the ceiling and across the audience of like me. and it was just one of those like kismet moments where like, oh my god, this is like goosebumps. But obviously I didn't get them till after because I was being Medea at that point. But it was just like haunting, and it was just silent. So it's just I still remember that one. That was a good one.
Good. Wow.
Yeah.
What is fake blood made of?
This one was like, I think it's mainly corn syrup and like red dye. So I was like pink for about a week after as well. Because he literally just went all this blood, like fake blood all over me, and it just wouldn't come off. But it's mostly like sugar syrup and dye.
Well, at the beginning of the YouTube interviews, we decided that Hero would go first, and then I would follow, so that she could give me time to come up with an elegant answer or respond. But now that I've heard that story, which gave me goosebumps listening to it, I pass on this question, and let's just go to the next one.
No!
I don't think you could top the flood bucket and epic
I'm not gonna
shadow.
top that.
And
No. Why wasn't that in Limelight and Larceny, by the way? Because holy crap.
I know. I just didn't know where I could like slot it in. But
Well, we're gonna slot in one of them now.
Yeah, I hated him for it though at the time, because I was just like, what, why? And then I had to go on, so I couldn't like, and I just like carry like this is so sex, just freaking everybody out.
Yeah,
I mean, I saw one of my bosses at a pizza place dump a gallon of pizza sauce on the dude once, but it doesn't have the impact of the story I just heard just now. So, all right, next question, Diane, of the quotidian writer.
Okay, so are there any particular theater inside jokes that you put into Limelight and Larceny just for fun?
So many. Like a lot of the stories, the theater stories that are in the book are from my personal history in theatre. So there's I don't want to, no, it won't spoil anything, but there was like the Romeo and Juliet one.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Where she was searching for the knife, the dagger. Because you can't obviously without one. So that happened, that genuinely happened, and it was just a lot of fondling. So it has to be here somewhere, it has to be here, and it wasn't there, so it had to be mimed very cleverly, like. But yeah, there's so many in there though. Anything that like is a theatre story is probably one of mine or Jordan's personal stories. So yeah, lots and lots of theatre jokes. Oh, stage managers being like, what are you doing? Like stage managers just being stressed out all the time. That's also very true.
Some of the character archetypes that you will see when I was plotting it out, I took memories from my times in class over the year and a half I was taking the various classes, and they were people I had run into, students who I'd interacted with and still friends with today, and I just took kernels of them and then blew them up to an extreme of one or another, which is one of the tricks to making a character a little memorable. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of inside jokes because most of what we did was learn stuff, and the few inside jokes I have are so bawdy that it wouldn't have worked in our particular clean brand of.
I feel like theater people are a dirty-minded bunch, though. I feel that is a stereotype.
100%.
That's true.
There's so many stories that could have gone in but aren't in there.
The rated R version, on the 10-year anniversary.
Exactly.
But so since you're both familiar with watching plays, obviously you have like an appreciation for the stage. And so do you think that when it comes to novels, are stage plays and novels, like how are they different? Are they very complementary as forms, or what do you think that relationship is like between the different mediums?
I think they're very complementary depending on the show. So, I mean, plays anyway was sort of a gateway. I mean, go way, way back and it's storytelling. And then, people would use storytelling, and that's basically a play, is just storytelling. But then it was sort of a gateway to literacy for people who obviously didn't read. So Shakespeare, it was for the masses, because they wouldn't necessarily be, picking up Mallory or whatever, and reading through that. So I think they are complementary, and I know Hamlet in particular, I prefer to, well, no, that's not true. I like watching it on stage, but I also like reading it. So in that particular case, I think it's complementary, but then I think you have to understand that it is different. So what's it called? When The Cursed Child came out, you know, people were very disappointed because it was a script, and it's like, it's the script. It's not a book. It's meant to be put on a stage. But I do think there are certain plays that you could read and still enjoy as a read text rather than, you know, seeing it on stage. But it is obviously better on stage because that's what it's aimed for.
For sure.
And I would add a little bit about structure. So a lot of book structures could find their roots, acts, first act, second act, so on and so forth. There are a lot of beats that are that we've put in books because they are these stories that are a way of telling stories that we've stripped from the older and used, even if it's just shorthand acknowledgement that this is how it works because that's how the stories have worked before. So I think if they're not brothers, they're definitely really close cousins.
Yeah. Just another little add-on is obviously the script writing and novel writing, they're very different disciplines as well. I'm not sure which is harder, but personally script writing is harder for me because you can't fall back on the prose of it necessarily. So you can't rely on description or world building and that kind of thing because it's in a script, I mean, because that's all the set, the characters or the location or, you know, what's being filmed or the characters and the subtlety in faces and things like that, or in voice. It's much more direct script writing, and I find it a lot more difficult because I waffle. I love to waffle. So yeah, so they are very different disciplines which are complementary. Yeah, like you say, they're closely related, but yeah.
To use that as to springboard off of that, I will also say that if you do any script writing and you don't want to do it, it is harder for you to do. It's still a great practice because you're naked with conversation at this point. You are exposed, so your dialogue will get sharper and better in your prose because you've seen it now without all the dressings. You've seen it nude and naked, and you want to put it on a diet and send it to the gym before it.
What plays are you watching?
I'm just, All right, next question.
But no, I think that is very true for the different mediums, and it is. I also find it interesting with novels and plays too, is that with plays it very much depends on the actors too. They can change the whole performance and how it feels and how it sounds, versus a novel you can do that a little bit as a reader. Each reader is going to have a different experience, but it's still more solidified, I feel, as to how each character feels, versus how like a play will change versus reading it versus watching it. Very different.
It's like sorry,
go ahead.
No, it's just I'm a Hamlet obsessive, but it's like that's a perfect example of the to be or not to be speech. I've seen Hamlet about 15 times and I've never seen it done the same way. Wow. But if I read it the same way, like every time. But when you see an actor do to be or not to be, and it's so overdone, but I've never seen one the same. So it's, yeah. But then again, that's like a reader, isn't it? You know, one reader won't read a character the same way as someone else reads it. So
yeah, it's super. The subjectivity of just any sort of writing is really awesome, I think. So and it's my last question for you guys is, do you have a favorite theater term or expression?
Yes, so many, but I'll stick to 3. Okay, so the first one is corpsing. I don't know if you have that in the US.
I have never heard of that. Corpsing?
Corpsing. So corpsing is when an actor laughs on stage when they're not supposed to. I don't know if what you would break in character.
Yeah, maybe that's probably what we would say. Yeah,
we call it corpsing, and it's because I think it stems from when someone is a corpse on stage, they find it the hardest to like hold in the giggle. But then there's also like a quote of someone saying, "I would have been corpsed without a prompter."
Mm,
and that seems to have been where it sort of stemmed from. But corpsing is a great one.
that is good.
Vamping, which is one that, yeah, so that's musical theatre, and that's at the beginning of, like, you know, a song, it's vamping. If you're vamping for time, it's like, you know, just keep playing until someone does something, but it can also be transferred to every day. And then the other one is one that comes from theatre but isn't necessarily theatre. So that's Deus Ex Machina, which is God from the Machine, which is from ancient Greek theatre, which is when they used to, like, just to resolve a play quickly, they'd like get a crane out and bring in a god who's an actor, and then just like dump him on stage, or like bring him up through the stage. And that's where that term comes from. So when something's like, you know, they have a bit of Deus Ex Machina, someone comes in, resolves it. That's all
Love that.
theatre.
Like, yeah, I've heard that phrase so much, especially with novels, and never really, I didn't actually know that it came from theater. It's
Theatre,
awesome. Yeah.
If they just drop in like Hermes or, you know, Zeus to
Yes.
fix everything.
Convenient storytelling solution. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How about you, Jordan?
Is it my turn now?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
she stole every one of them I would have said.
Oh,
I'm trying to
yeah.
I'm trying to think of a limelight joke or just a spotlight comment or something. But for terminology, I would say everything that Hero wrote in our book that I've never heard before, it quickly became my favorite, including vamping. Because when it was on the page, I thought, well, is this a British thing? And went to Google, and I'm like, oh no, it's not. Vamping is it's not a British thing, and I've used it in real life ever since. So I would say that
Learned that from it.
is my favorite now.
Yeah, I liked the term the Scottish play for Macbeth as like one of the stage superstitions, because I think the superstitions surrounding theater are always very interesting to me. It's sort of like a cultural component of it.
Well, it's the whistling one as well. You're not supposed to whistle on stage.
Oh, interesting.
And that's because back in the day, like, they weren't called technicians, but the stage technicians would whistle to each other to drop backdrops in. So if you whistle on stage, you could get a backdrop to the head. So that's where that one comes from.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's cool.
That's so cool.
We learned something.
No. Yes. Oh my gosh. So yeah, thanks for getting through all my questions again. It's really interesting to hear about your experiences with theater, because it really does come through a lot in the book. Like, you can just tell that people that understand theater, they wrote this book, because there's just so many in jokes and references, and I absolutely love that about it.
I'm gonna interrupt us for a second and say that it was serendipity, because when I plotted, I did not know Hero a year and a half, 2 years ago, before I came up with the initial concept of these characters inside this other novel. So I had a group of community actors in this other novel, and we needed to find something for us to work on. I stripped them out, made it its own thing. But I did not know, even as I was stripping them out and creating it, I didn't know that here was an actress who had a ton of stage time. So it was like I accidentally assembled this team, because our beta readers, our developmental editor, almost all have something to do with theater. And we were convinced at one point that the entire theater groups just moved straight to publishing after they get out of college, because everybody we ran into. So I felt like it ended up being the perfect first story for us to work on together.
Yes, it was. And Limelight Larceny is available in print and ebook, and also the amazing audiobook production with 12 different narrators, 12 different voice actors. So it's definitely like it has that stage play feel to it, I feel, for sure. So we have our links in the description. And so we can't wait to show you what else will grow in our story garden.